Hey everyone, welcome and thanks for joining us today. On today's podcast episode, we have special guest, longtime friend, mom of two, and fantastic, phenomenal real estate agent, Heather Hornall, joining us today. Thanks.
Hey Shauna, how you doing? Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for showing up. So how you doing?
I am doing really good. I'm really hoping to pass along a great message and we can have some good connections during this podcast that maybe can help inspire some people.
Nice. Well, so the topics we're discussing today is along growth, change, spirituality, and recovery.
Yes, ma'am. We are going to talk about rebuilding and reinventing ourselves on our journey to recovery. So one of the things that we kind of talked about before we started recording today was just kind of like how your perception is to other people of yourself. And I feel like a lot of people kind of just try and keep themselves locked in this how am I going to be, how am I going to fit in reality. Everything's so social media driven. I see kids like really getting messed up in school trying to be perfect, and I was very much like that when I was a kid as well. um, and I mean, we were judged by other people, so try and figure out that it doesn't matter what those people think about you, I think is an important topic to talk about, and how to make yourself grow in that way, at least, so you can move on and let go of those passive, like what people have labeled you to be.
Yeah, because you had mentioned that, like, in high school you get that label and judgment, but then as you grow up, you don't get the recognition and people don't realize that you've changed. So, like, you kind of go through growth and you become different, but people have this perception of you already and that
Yeah.
they don't change.
Yeah, I mean, some people, like we kind of said before as well, they kind of stay. So it's like, just as an example, you go to a party and you're back in your 17-year-old friend circle and you're 40 and everyone's still using drugs and alcohol just like they did before. And then you've moved forward from that, let's just say. Well, are you getting judged for being the same? Have you moved forward? I mean, not that it's anybody's business, but I mean, there is a perception that a lot of people are going to label you, right? Oh, she used to be like that. She was like that. And none of that really matters as long as you grow within yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Well, that's pretty cool. It sounds like you've done a lot of growth and discovery. So, like, can you maybe talk about that? Like, so, like, how, like, what you've done to change
Yeah, for sure.
and be different?
So, to be honest, I was growing up in quite an alcoholic type setting. I always strived to be perfectionist and always wanted to be like skinny and pretty and popular, and just like everybody this age does, minus as much social media influence then. But I ended up like getting into this like depression and sadness and started using drugs probably at the age of 15, alcohol, doing anything that I really could to just self-destruct. And that followed me around my whole life, on and off. But until I had my son, I was definitely probably the worst. And then I ended up going through a bout of like that same symptoms here for the last couple of years, and I was just falling down this crazy dark path, and ended up pulling drugs back into my life, which I hadn't done for a very long time, and it just kind of took over. And I knew like I need to make a change. So slowly started my journey to recovery and been helping other people in the program. And it's been hard. I mean, the first couple months to recovery are very, I don't know, very depressing, very a lot of emotions. I went through a breakup with my boyfriend who I really loved, and it just wasn't working. And you just find out so much stuff about yourself that you got to try and work through, and you start to break down like who you want to be and like how you want to see yourself through your own lens, not somebody else's. So that's what I'm hoping we can kind of talk about today.
That's a lot. That's cool, though. Like, that's, like, very deep and in depth. Like, I think it reaches to a lot of people who may be struggling with, they might be looking to recover. They might not know where to start. And, I think this is excellent to talk about.
Yeah, so definitely where to start. So that is like a definite thing. Like, so I was in sobriety before through Alcoholics Anonymous, back in like think I was like 27 till I was 30, so I did almost 3 years, and I called AA. Number one, I called Abbotsford because I was too embarrassed to admit in my own town that I lived in. So I ended up calling Abbotsford, found a sponsor, started going to meetings, and did the steps, which are the 12 steps to recovery, which are a very, very good program. I strongly suggest finding out more about those when you're in your own journey to sobriety, but not right away, it's in time. Anyways, did the steps, started rebuilding, but then after I stopped going to meetings, I slowly didn't stay sober. And then I was embarrassed to come back, which you shouldn't be, because when you join AA or recovery or NA, any of those groups, Al Anon, there's CODA, codependency, they all open arm welcome you back. Like it is just an amazing place to be, and it's never anything to be afraid of. But we do, we get afraid, and we don't want to go back because we're embarrassed, right?
Mhm.
So, first step was just showing up and going to a meeting. For me, it's Alcoholics Anonymous because that's where all my drug and alcohol addictions come from picking up that bottle, and then I just make stupid decisions.
Mhm.
And they are literally everywhere. I'm from Chilliwack, so we have a really, really great community in Chilliwack. They're hosting probably about 10 meetings per day.
Oh wow.
And then they also have Zoom ones. So usually every morning I'll wake up with a meditate at 8 Zoom. It's hosted somewhere in Vancouver, I think, but you can
Mhm.
go on from anywhere in the world, which is an amazing platform.
Nice.
And yeah, there's just so many great things. And starting your day with that positivity and like knowing that you're giving over your will, because that's one of the first steps to recovery is admitting that we were powerless. And like every morning I have to get down and admit that. Because if you don't, then you're just running your life on your own will. And our own will has gotten us not some great places, right?
That's yeah, I see that in one aspect. I don't think I've ever heard that before, but I mean, admitting that also, I think it shows the other mirror side of showing how much um, the choice that you've made to literally choose this gives you that power, if that makes sense. So it's
Hmm.
like you are almost like taking that back and like running your life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty powerful, like the work
Hmm.
that you're doing for yourself.
Yeah, so like on that, it's mainly like this isn't a you-based program, it's a we-based program, like what I'm doing in my recovery.
Mhm.
And like the best thing about showing up is the people that you meet. Like I literally have ditched most all of my friends from my past. Like
Mhm.
I've only been sober for just under 3 months, but you really have to like make new connections. And when you show up to those meetings and meet these people, they're like totally different spectrum people that you would think if you were being judgy or whatever that you wouldn't be friends with, but you just meet this grace in like these rooms, like this love. And these people end up becoming like your new friends, and they're all sober, so they're good friends to be around. And the thing is that we're supposed to be of service in this program,
Mhm.
and that's what we are. We help someone else. We give a nice, kind note. We do something. We give somebody a ride. We whatever we do,
Mhm.
it's based around other people, and then that other people service work in the recovery program is what keeps you sober.
Wow.
So that's really what it's all about. It comes down to what we can do for someone else rather than ourselves, and giving that selflessness of yourself just like really, really helps your recovery.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's
yeah,
really
that's a
good.
different place to come from. So yeah, that's it sounds like it's like you said greater than just focusing on just one person, and it's like more of a team, but you're involving like a lot of more other people and you're making these connections. So it sounds like a great connection to
Hmm.
have with all these people.
Yeah, we kind of talking about like spirituality and stuff like that as well. So like this program is a very spiritual based program. Not that I want to scare people off by the God word, but a lot of people do get scared of that word when they come in the rooms, and they don't understand that it's not just about one person being um, your higher power. It's about anything. Like, so for
Mhm.
me, on that note, I obviously am very Christian. I believe in a higher power. I don't know if there's one God. I think there's many. Um, but what I believe is that there's good and bad, and there's always good and bad. So the good is the thing telling me in the back of my mind, my conscious mind, saying, "Don't do that, Heather. You're better than that. Don't put yourself in this position." And when I do, that's when I'm really getting myself into shitty situations. And that is like my God, that's my guiding grace. And like when we listen to that voice, what's that voice? Something's got to be telling us that voice. Whether it's the universe or angels or whatever the heck we're doing here. Something guides us, and there's definitely something better than ourselves. And then what we do is take that voice and don't listen to it. So that's when we're on our own will. And that's why we got to really like give that will away every morning and be like, no, I'm going to listen and trust what's coming from above.
That's well. Thanks for explaining that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I kind of got it, but like, I mean, I would say that, um, I mean, like, I pray to God, and so for me, I think when I was born, I was baptized, and my family's background is Catholic, but I've always resonated more with the Christian church.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people who invited me to their churches was Christian. I've gone to a couple of Catholic churches, but yeah, so like you know, I'm not afraid to pray to God, ask for the angels for help, and then that voice you were talking about, that's like, I don't think anyone's ever really spoke to that before. So, you know, um,
Yeah, it's definitely
thanks for mentioning that.
it's your own interpretation is pretty much, and it can be anything. Like just like my love for animals, like I really don't show a lot of emotion and empathy towards people. I think it's just from past traumas and hurts in my own life, maybe a
Makes
little bit
sense.
of abandonment issues. So what I end up doing is like showing this deep love to like an animal.
Hmm.
You know why? Because they can't hurt you back. They just love you back. And that's like what God's love is. It's just forever love. And we need to trust it. And we trust our parent or we not our parents. We don't trust our parents. We trust our animals though. And it's like I must be full of love if I can love something like I love my animals. Like I have
Yeah.
quite a few of them. And you know,
Oh, you
like
do?
I have three, yeah.
Like, yeah, so dogs, cats.
I have two dogs and a cat, and my cat's not doing well, and it makes me so sad because I know she was gonna pass soon. But yeah, I just think like how grateful I am to have her for 18 years. Like she's
Oh,
put
wow.
so much like love, and just
Yeah.
that love of knowing that I can love somebody. Like I am worthy, I am lovable. It's just breaking down those walls to like those past traumas and hurts, like figuring out where that's coming from.
Well, I mean, animals don't judge, like you said, and then they are loving, and then, whereas humans,
Yeah.
in their brain, like, need
We're
to
a
be
little
similar.
different.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, the best thing we can try and do is not judge ourselves or others. So, and what kind of dogs do you have?
I got this one dog from Mexico, and oh my goodness, she literally is a like breath of fresh air. Her name's Luna. She is so loving. Anyone that comes over, she just like laps up on them. Like, oh, she's kind of looks like a healer, I would say, and maybe a
Cool.
little bit of terrier, probably everything. She's just a Baja special dog
Hmm.
from Mexico.
Nice.
Love her. And then my other one's a little Jack Russell Chihuahua. She's so cute too, and she's getting old as well, so she's probably gonna be on her way. And then after that, I'm just gonna kind of slowly see if the universe gives me another animal. I'm not gonna go and search for one. I'm
Mm.
gonna take a little break and just grieve over them one day.
Mhm. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So there were a couple of questions. Not sure if you want to kind of dive into them.
Mhm.
So I guess it's from a third person perspective. So, when you love someone and they keep choosing substance, like kind of like either over you or it's just their choice, like what can you say to people who are like concerned? Like what's the best approach, or is it just be an allowance? Like, what do you have any advice?
So, are we talking in perspective of like, say, a family member that is like excessively using or in abundance, and you're kind of worried about them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have this one friend that I've been worried about for quite some time, and I could say many things, and I think about it sometimes about what to say,
Mhm.
but I believe that I love that person how they are no matter what. And I think my only fear, which drives anything that I would want to say, is the fear of losing them. So yeah, it just depends. I mean, for me, I've never really spoke too much other than saying I love you and I'm just worried about you. But I haven't like pushed anyone to do anything. I feel like at that when you're an addict and especially an alcoholic, we have a crazy mind and like our mind, we're like today we're not gonna drink, but then 4 hours later we're going to the liquor store. Like we just, for me, it was every 1 or 2 days I could take off, and then the third day it would be like that voice knocking again. So you got to think the person that you want to say those things to is trying like their hardest not to pick that bottle up again. But we can't really say anything until they are ready. We can only love them and be there when they are.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay. That's cool. Um, so so for people who are struggling with like addiction, and I think alcohol is like I've seen that it starts with alcohol and then whatever from there.
Mhm.
So how can someone break addiction when they rely so heavily on alcohol?
Well, the first thing is getting into like a social setting and group. Um, like we have so many groups like in Chilliwack here, and it's just not everywhere. Like we have Alcoholics Anonymous, which is obviously an amazing group. Um, we have Main Street Church running like recovery church every Monday. They feed you a meal. There's just so many resources. We could definitely touch on that if anyone had any questions. But definitely looking into your district's support system. There's also free counseling. There's so many different things and avenues that we can go. But the thing is that we need to just show up and not be afraid and just like give into the program. Like you have to be willing to go to any lengths to get it.
Wow, to get like into recovery
Mhm.
to be sober, that's a pretty huge choice. Um, so you did kind of touch on this. I guess it's kind of like I'm not sure if it's reiterating it again, but like what did work for you, and like do you have a daily routine, and how do you stay grounded?
Yeah, so what worked for me is you have to really create like new habits, create like a new lifestyle. You have to break the habits that we used to do. So like when I was feeling sad or gloomy, I'd go over and like drink. Every time I was happy or sad, I would drink. Like so now it's like you got to create different momentum. Like when I'm sad, like I better go for a walk in nature and like just go ground myself.
Mhm.
Like put my hand on a tree and look up and be grateful that I'm not drinking today. Like things like that. Go give someone a nice letter, even a letter, no gift, just a handwritten letter, drop it off. Those things that we do for other people that work for me is trying to do something that's selfless, and it's really, really been working.
Mhm.
I obviously get in my head sometimes as well. Like yesterday was a prime example. I was very, very frustrated. Like really frustrated. I was like, I need to go to a meeting, and I actually didn't go to a meeting yesterday. I had a whole bunch of things going on, no excuses, but I should have went. Like going to those meetings and showing up, and like when you're feeling like really in that dark spot, getting out of it and not like converting to what we normally would do, which is go to the liquor store, go to our friends, pick up some drugs, mask. We mask our lives, and now we have to feel them, and it's not easy.
It sounds like that. Like it sounds like sometimes the hardest thing to do is really, well, be truthful with yourself, kind of look at yourself, and then all that stuff underneath, it seems a bit, I guess, I don't know if it's painful or what when you get vulnerable with those feelings there. And, is that like individual for everyone with what they're going through? Because it's like, or is it like, do you think it's just like a lot of pain?
I think everybody's situation's so different. I like that you said vulnerable because that's a word that you really need to delve into being vulnerable. I'm not very vulnerable, but I've been a lot more vulnerable. And one of the things that if we can relate to vulnerability, I think that is asking for forgiveness. So that's another huge step in the program.
Yeah, you'd
Is
mentioned that.
Yeah, so you go and you write a list of people that you had harmed, and like you break all these things down, your fears and all these things that we react to, and you take a look at them on paper, and then you write a list and you go and make amends. And you never make the amends about the other person. It's all about you. And what you're doing is you're letting go of all that shit that you're holding deep inside, and it's called the steps. Like it's your step 5. So what you do is you say, like, please forgive me. I know back here, even if it was 25 years ago, I know I did this to you or I stole from you, and you let that out of your mind so it's not clouding up your judgment anymore of yourself. And as you start to release those things, you just become like such a better, lighter person. So,
That's cool.
mhm.
A load off your chest, a load off your shoulders.
Yes.
Huh. And did you mention something else? Because you said forgiveness, and then there was, as we were talking earlier before, I think from your notes, or.
Sure. Admitting we were wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's very humbling, right? So we got to admit that we are wrong, and that is like where we're being vulnerable.
Mhm.
Like, for an example, like my parents, like when I was sober before, they didn't come to my meeting and say anything at my 1 year sobriety cake, right? Like that hurt me. So that could be the conversation like, hey, like I'm really happy you guys came, but it hurt me. And I just hope that you are proud of me. We could talk. Like maybe we could have that conversation without, maybe that's a bad example because then you're kind of putting them under the bus. But you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Saying
for
I love
sure.
you and just saying I'm glad that you're there for me and just getting rid of like that pain, like somehow releasing that stuff, right? Like we gotta
Well,
humble ourselves and get out of that shit.
yeah, kind of like saying like, hey, it would have been nice if you showed up, and I was hurt that you didn't. To let someone know at least. And that's kind of how I look at life when I'm, whether it's like friends or family relationship or whatever. I sometimes think like I ask a question. I'm like, hey, do I say this now? Yes or no? And then I'll let that person kind of know where I'm at and how I'm feeling, and a bit vulnerable there. But
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I've never really done too much of the amends with my own family, which is kind of crazy. I ended up doing the steps before a long time ago, and I was vulnerable with some people, but that was probably the hardest part is like being vulnerable. It's really difficult and it's
Mhm.
really scary, and I don't know what the fear is behind it, but maybe being like not strong, being weak. You know what I mean? Like just that feeling of that.
That's
It's really hard to get over that.
the way I look at it is because sometimes like I'm willing to put myself out there and approach people, and sometimes I have to like lower barriers and be like, I have to be willing for this person to say like fuck you, fuck off, or be
Mhm.
like no, and it's like rejection,
Yep.
and people can be really mean and cruel. So
Mhm.
it's like you kind of have to be aware of that and be kind of like willing to just be like let that person be what they're going to be. So
Yep.
like I'm not going to stop like going forward and being, I guess, like going where I'm going. But yeah, if you approach people and
Mhm.
you try to make amends and you're being vulnerable, you don't know what you're gonna get. You don't know what they're gonna say, right?
Yep. You have
Like,
to go in there with an open mind though and remember
yeah.
that you're just releasing you and you're not bound to their emotions. It's just like when I go to somebody's house and I do a CMA for them, which is a market analysis, and they're like super attached to their home. Oh, well, we've done this, we've done this, we've done this. Well, I'm coming in from an unbiased opinion, right? Like I'm as a buyer coming in that doesn't know what you've done and doesn't live here,
Mhm.
right? So like creating that in our own lives is like how we should go into every situation, seeing it as new, not seeing it as past and traumas, like trying to delve into someone else's life and take over like, oh, I wonder what they're like now and go back to that. How about just knowing them from now, not from before? And that's like how I try and live my morning every day. And it's like this is what I want to say about reinventing yourself. Like stop worrying, which is what I do, about what people cared about to say about you before. I'm me now. This is the new Heather. I'm working every day to be somebody better than I was yesterday. And I don't care if you don't like me from before because you might like me now. But
Mhm.
if you don't, I really don't fucking care. Go
That's
fuck
awesome.
yourself
Yeah.
because you know what? I'm doing me. And that's kind of what we need to do is just not, we need to stop worrying about what the hell everybody else thinks, to
Yeah.
be honest. You need to go out there and just do what you're going to do and do it the best way possible so that when people do see you, maybe they feel like an asshole for being such jerks.
Well, and hopefully your like I think this is a great conversation because your consciousness and your awareness brings you like to, like you said, you kind of wake up every day and ask like how can I be greater than I was yesterday, which is awesome. And
Mm.
then letting go and saying fuck it to what people think is a really great tool to use in life, because there's like I would say like maybe 90% of the people on this planet kind of operate in that like anger and hate.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to say fuck it because that's their stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't attach. Let that stuff go. Like just like someone in a room. Like so, if I'm angry or upset, I have a very strong like aura of like I can steal your energy, and you can be around people in your life that do that. And I call them energy suckers or energy vampires. They suck the life out of you when you're with them. And if people are making you feel like that when you're with them, just nicely step back and make sure that you know how you feel when you're with those people. You want to be full of people that are constantly encouraging, loving, the people who make you laugh, the people who make you smile. Like those are the people that you want to have as your five people in your corner. And if you're around all this bullshit every day and negativity, like get off the phone nicely or walk the hell away.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd say that's a great life lesson because, um, there was this conversation of kind of just like you said, like reinventing yourself every day. And like, I think what you're kind of talking to is how sometimes, because I see this in myself, where I just want to be around these people, but they're, like you said, like they can be soul sucking. But I'm just
Hmm.
like, I need to learn how to say, maybe not today or something. But I don't know what keeps me like continuously going back. It's very like it's
Hmm.
something to kind of change for myself, I would say,
Yeah, it can be so many things. I mean, it could be the addiction of how they make you feel when you have your highs. I mean, you could feel guilty about maybe not being there.
There you go.
A lot of,
I think
lot
that's
of,
it.
a lot of things are gonna. So for me, so on that note, I had to learn like so talking about boundaries, like to say no. I was saying yes, 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 yes all the
Yeah.
time, losing my shit. I couldn't keep up. I'm like Heather, stop saying yes to people. So now, can I get back to you?
Mhm.
Simple. Can I get back to you on that? And then think about it. Do I have time to do what they're asking? Do I want to do that? And should I do that? What's the purpose of what I'm doing in my life? Because if I'm just showing up for people all the time for every little thing they're asking me for, I'm getting spread too thin. And then I'm not happy about what I'm doing. And then I become resentful and angry and carry that through my day for the weeks going up to whatever the hell I said yes to.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah, that's so smart. I would say just to like ask those questions because then it gives you that awareness to be like, okay, and then you have a choice. Okay, am
Mm-hmm.
I going to do this? Yes or no? And I think that's a lot of strength. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah. Can I get back to you on that?
That's funny.
Oh gosh.
Um, well, like, so I guess like a couple more questions here would be like, so like, what is fun for you?
Yeah, so I know I don't look like it, like blonde hair, whatever. I look like I'm just this normal lady, but I am like the biggest tomboy you would ever know. I swear like a trucker. I would say my I don't know what you want to call it, but my nickname would be Trucker Barbie.
Nice.
I absolutely love cars. I probably know more about cars than most guys do. I definitely know how to drive them. I can drift, I can drag race, I can do dirt bike racing. I literally love anything that goes fast. So that's one cool thing that I find makes me get out of my head is doing stuff like that that is so exhilarating that it just crushes everything else in the world like for my passion.
Do you still have your race car?
I do. So there's kind of a cool story about that. So my dad and my uncle took my grandfather's race car. Well, no, it wasn't a race car then. It was just his regular 1978 Ford Fairmont. He bought it brand new in 78. And in 1990, my dad and his brother rebuilt it into a race car, a Mission.
Hmm.
And about 8 years ago, my dad ended up selling it. We ended up going through two motors and a transmission all in one season. It was so expensive. My mom said, Ross, if you do not sell that car, I'm going to divorce you. So he had to get rid of it, and I was devastated actually. I never went back to the track for about 5 years after that, and I love racing and I love Mission Raceway. So for me to not go back was like devastating. So last year I made a pact with myself and I said my real estate goal this year is to make enough money in the bank to buy my grandpa's race car back. And I went out and I found the guy. I negotiated with him for 6 months on a price,
Hmm.
begging him to get it back because he didn't really want to sell it. But anyways, God came in and I got the car back at the end of November last year and I raced it all summer this year
Really?
and I got it back. So that is a super cool story and that car is amazing, you guys. Like it comes off the ground like 2.5 feet, does wheel stands. It's so cool and it is so cool to have it back because my grandpa would just be so in his greatest memories of us in that car. It's just there's just so much great love in that car.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
I mean, so that kind of covers like what do you love? Because like there's fun, and then maybe this is the same question, but like what do you love?
I also really love singing and I maybe I'm not the best at singing, but it just does something to me when you do it. And I know I also really like to write poetry. I'm the worst writer. If I'm writing an essay in proper English, terrible. But if I get something rhyming and something that's just random written down, like it's beautiful what comes out. So I really like those two things. But the biggest thing that I love is like genuine connections with people. I'm a people person. I love working with people.
Yeah.
I love helping people, especially like this is why I love my job. I
Mhm.
get to go out and help people every day. And like the buying side is great. We get to get a deal. We get to get things added in. We get to look around other people's houses. Like, I mean, I got keys to unlock every door. This is an amazing job. I love
Mhm.
it. But the biggest thing is helping those people on the other side get what they see, what they envision, and helping them work through that process. It's just the most amazing thing ever.
Wow, you're a great connector. Did you want to like talk about your resources that you had or anything else?
Yeah, for sure. So, obviously, I'm kind of quite new back into this program, but AA is absolutely stunning. There's also codependency steps and groups for that, which is called CODA. They host those. I've actually never went to one myself, but CODA is really really good if you find yourself like attaching onto somebody else and like constantly feeling like you're dependent on somebody all the time, and you can figure out kind of break that down why. I really strongly suggest people who aren't alcoholics or drug addicts to check into that too. Just it's like a check in of yourself.
That's cool.
Another one's Al-Anon for people who are suffering with living with an alcoholic that maybe aren't an alcoholic.
Mhm.
Um, and then what else? Oh, and NA. So that's Narcotics Anonymous. So that's if you're a drug user, ex-drug user. That's more kind of aligned to that. Different, little bit different of a program, but still very service-based. All these programs are across global. They're everywhere. They started in the 1930s, and there's also tons of churches with tons of um, resources for that too. They take you through steps and more like
Mhm.
God-based steps, but there's just so many groups around here. I would definitely search it up. Also, you can talk to counselors, local counselors. I mean, that costs a lot of money. I prefer to find a sponsor in a group, which is someone that takes you through the steps and somebody who listens to you, and you give them a call every day, check in,
Mhm.
and then you can kind of talk to that person and they can guide you because that person usually has quite a bit of years of sobriety and they kind of know what to say,
Okay.
right? So
Cool.
yeah, that's kind of a bit of that.
Well, that will help anyone who's listening. Is there anything else? We're kind of up to the 30-minute mark. Would you like to chat about anything else?
I just wanted to say thanks so much for having me here. I hope that this podcast reaches some people that are struggling. And if anybody does have any questions, maybe just to email you or Instagram with you. And I am happy to be a sponsor. So if you're looking for someone to talk to or someone to get more knowledge about the program from, definitely open for that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so for anyone listening, if you want to get in touch with me, I will put in some links. You can email me at accessshaunaP@gmail.com. So you can send in questions and I can relay that to you if you'd
Yeah,
like,
that'd be great.
to Heather. So everyone, thanks for listening. Heather, I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and you're welcome back anytime to come on the podcast
Yeah,
again.
for sure. Let's do it.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. Bye.